see. Okay, Ingrid, let's do it.
We're recording, Mr. Stevens.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, January 26th meeting of the San Juan County Council. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's see. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the 11th?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the 11th and the 12th, January 11th and 12th, 2021.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for both January 11th and 12th. Any discussion or corrections? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. And I hope everyone got the consent agenda. Would entertain a motion for approval?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. We don't have any correspondence, so that would bring us to public access. Public access, if I'll look at who's attending here. It's a chance to address the council on any topic for 3 minutes. And other than the people who are going to be presenting, I only see one person with a phone number that ends in 3348.
Hi, this is Vicki Lineback. I'm on Arcus Island, and I just couldn't see the meeting yesterday, so I went to go look at the recording and never could find a recording of the meeting yesterday so that I could make a comment today. Is there this
did you want to make a comment?
Well, I'm interested in the vacation rental decisions and want to participate in that, but I couldn't watch the meeting. And when I went to the site yesterday, there wasn't anything recorded.
Ingrid, do you want to fill her in on how she could look at that recording? Or it might just not be up yet.
Yes, thank you. I'll check on that. We do have a recording and it should have been uploaded yesterday. Perhaps there was a glitch in the system. I'll take a look at it.
But that would just be going to the council on the website?
No, it should be available to the public.
I know. The public is trying to figure out where to find that on our website.
Oh, is that the case rather than whether it's there or not? Yes, I can, if the caller would like to go ahead and contact me, I can walk her through it. Although I'm not sure, at this point, whether we're talking about a failure to upload or an inability to find it.
I think it was a failure to upload because I looked everywhere for it and I found other recordings in the past. And I could not find it. I'm not the only one that couldn't find it yesterday.
Okay. Well, let me follow up on that. I can't do anything about it right this moment because we're recording, but I will check in on it and get back.
I really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
What's your contact information?
That would be Ingrid G at sanjuanco.com. Ingrid G at sanjuanco.com.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you. You're welcome.
In light of that, I'm wondering if the comments for the vacation rental could be made extended to next week. I realize that there's another meeting on the 3rd of February.
I don't think there is a meeting on the 3rd of February.
25th.
But, you're free to make the comments anytime you would like
Okay.
during citizen access.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. There's one added person on the phone, phone number ending in 2688.
That's Todd Nicholson from IOSA. The computer's not coming through for some reason, so I'm gonna use the phone.
Okay. With that, I don't see any others. So our first item up is the interlocal agreement with the Port of Friday Harbor. Colin Huntemer, Director of Public Works.
Yes, Colin here with County Public Works. Thank you, Mr. Stevens, and good morning, Council. You should have access in your systems to the interlocal agreement, which is a standard agreement used by the county's PA's office when public agencies want to have a cooperative relationship in doing business of mutual interest. In this case, conveniently, Todd is on the call this morning, but the county and the Port of Friday Harbor have a number of shared interests here on San Juan Island. We have shared property boundaries up here near the airport. We have mutual interest in addressing some road-related issues and marine facility-related issues on Jackson Beach Road near Griffin Bay. And there is some long-range planning here, which there may be future partnerships with the port's plans with their marine facilities adjacent to Connector Road. So this agreement, with Council's approval, will allow the Public Works Department and other entities within the county to work with the port when there is areas of mutual interest and we can share our resources. Again, this is a standard agreement, and I would ask that Council consider approving it this morning. Thank you.
Todd, as long as you're on the call, do you have any comments on the interlocal?
No, the interlocals are a great tool. We use those with the town and with the fire department. They allow both the county and the port to cooperatively work on projects, if one or the other of us has more expertise or resource in a particular task, then we can reimburse the other entity for doing kind of a joint project. So they're a great tool. I very much recommend that you consider approving it.
Okay, Council, any questions or comments?
No, not at this time.
None.
And, oh, go ahead. Cindy, you said no?
None.
Did that stuff come in or no?
Yes, it did come in.
Okay. Yeah, so I recommend, I would very much appreciate the council considering approving this agreement.
So I'll ask Council, since it just came in this morning, do you want to wait till after maybe we take a recess so you can take a look at it, or would you want to move now?
I'll defer to Christine, as I understand these things are pretty formulaic in terms of the interlocal agreements, and I'm grateful to Senator Lovelet for making these things effective in terms of being able to cooperate. She helped pass some legislation that makes interlocals a lot more effective in terms of being able to do joint purchases and things like that. So.
I think that my internet is being a little bit, excuse me, finicky this morning. I suspect that done due diligence here, and I'm ready to move forward.
Okay, in that case, then I would entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move to, yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the interlocal mutual cooperation agreement between San Juan County and the Port of Friday Harbor.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve an interlocal agreement between San Juan County and the Port of Friday Harbor. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, council, and thank you, Todd.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Todd and Colin.
Thank
Let's
you.
see. Find my agenda again. Okay, next up is our presentation on the Islands Oil Spill Association annual report with Brendan Cowan, our San Juan County Emergency Manager, and Tony Parkin, the new Director of IOSA, and Todd Nicholson, Director of the Port of Friday Harbor. And just as a little bit of background, if I may, IOSA has been around for many years. It kind of imploded about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5. Some dedicated volunteers stepped in and remade the organization, and it's a much different organization, but a very valued organization in the county, as they are able to respond to many oil spills and are the first, if there was a major oil spill, they would be the first eyes on the ground. And part of remaking IOSA is the county has made a contribution, is part of the contributors to the organization, and they actually have an executive director and a lot of volunteers. So with that, I will let you, I will let the IOSA people take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Nod your head if you saw the IOSA logo take over your computer a moment ago. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. And Mr. Chair, just so you know, you are now an IOSA person, obviously, and we'll get to more on that in a minute. Let me bring up my screen. And then I'm going to pass it off to Board President Jay Havner.
Okay, right out of the gate. Thanks, Brendan. Well, first of all, thank you to the council members, Stevens, Minnie, and Wolf for having us today, and also for your support of IOSA. We couldn't have done this without you, and also we couldn't have done this rebuild and building on IOSA without the public, especially the approval of the levy this last year has been just critical in us moving forward and rebuilding the organization. I'm not going to take a lot of time talking. I just wanted to say the thank yous. We have some other folks that are going to speak to provide some great information. But as we all know, it's a community-driven organization, has been around for decades. One of the things that I've really appreciated in participating is working with folks that have been with the organization since the very, very beginning, decades ago, to folks that are brand new and volunteering. And I hope some of the folks on the call might even look at volunteering someday themselves. So that's been great. Our interactions with the port, with the county, with fire districts, with the public have just been incredible. And I just wanted to thank everybody for that. And to talk about the board composition a little bit, I'm going to turn it over to Kai Samburn, our vice president.
Is Kai on the call? Because I'm not seeing her name or number.
Jay, do you want to roll through this?
Yeah, that's fine. I thought Kai was on earlier. I thought she'd tested those. So yeah, so we've got folks, and you may see on the list here that one of the islands that's a little underrepresented is Orcas. And so if we know any folks on Orcas that would like to either volunteer more as a direct volunteer or maybe even hop on the board, we're looking for folks for representation on the board here. But so we have a cross section of basically the community up here in the greater community of the islands, as well as from the county, as well as from the oil industry, all in an effort to help us, prevent, respond to, and even at some extent recover from oil spills. Heaven forbid they happen up here. So our charter and our bylaws help lay out the formation or the structure, and that includes 2 members from the county government. So we thank Brendan and Chair Stevens for being part of the board, as well as a couple of folks from industry over on the mainland from the refineries, Connor Kinney and Bill Reinsmith, and then as you can see down, excuse me, down towards the bottom, one of our longest standing members is Randall Waugh from Lopez, and he's been on for a number of years as well. So myself as the president, Kai Sanborn, vice president, secretary currently is Connor Keeney. We appreciate all the effort and help. Todd Nicholson, who we just spoke to a little bit ago here, is our treasurer. Of course, Jamie, soon to be vice president, Elena Thompson over on Vandovi Island, Paul Hamdorf from San Juan, Richard Leipelt is a newer member from San Juan. We appreciate him stepping up and jumping on the board. Dave Montfort, and I mentioned Bill Reinsmith, and then at the end here we have Randall and Brendan. So that's the overall composition of our board. I don't have anything to add to that, Brendan, unless you do.
No, that's great, Jay. Really appreciate it. And I mean, obviously it's gone from a relatively small board that did a lot of great work, but with limited resources, to a much larger board with really an incredible array of skills and perspectives and communication styles. So it's been a pleasure to work with that group for a while now. So Council, what I'd like to do is just go through a brief history of IOSA, kind of covering the hot points to get to kind of describing to how we got to where we are today. Mr. Stevens, this will be a bit of a review for you, of course, but for the new council members, I think it's important just to get a little bit of context. And the most important piece of that is Julie Knight, who founded IOSA following a spill that occurred on the west side of San Juan Island in Westcott Bay and Mosquito Pass back in 1985. That was sort of a rallying point for the community and Julie to begin to develop improved local capacity to respond to events. So Julie is really the heart and soul of the organization, has been for a long time. She lives on Lopez Island. And I think one of the board's big challenges and opportunities going forward is to always remember that sort of Julie's spirit and her style and community spirit needs to be the foundation of what IOSA does. Even as the organization continues to evolve. When people think of oil spill, they think of tankers and large ships, sort of large scale, highly notable incidents. And while that's certainly something that is a core part of IOSA's mission and something the organization prepares for, the reality is that the vast majority of the responses that IOSA participates in and organizes are much smaller events. They're fuel spills and boats hitting rocks and vessel fires scattered all across the islands, and they happen dozens of times every year. Over IOSA's history, the group has responded to more than 600 events, and like I said, almost all of those are focused on smaller scale incidents, including a very large number of sheen investigations where somebody sees fuel in the water, and the first thing to do is to have somebody go out and put eyes on it and try to understand maybe where it came from and what the potential is for recovering that product. So that's a key part. Nice pictures, groups training before exercises down at the Port of Friday Harbor. IOSA's funding model, historically, we've been funded by sort of a mix of streams, industry support, business funding, Port of Friday Harbor, community support, and then a mix of kind of grants and foundation giving. But the most important part of this, I think, is just to understand that historically, when you look back, it's kind of astonishing that IOSA was able to function as long as it did and as well as it did, really on what was, by all measures, a shoestring budget. So beginning in probably all the way back 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, an effort started to really rebuild the organization from the ground up and try to get IOSA to a place where it was going to be sustainable and able to operate in a really professional way going forward. And that effort really ramped up quite a bit 2 years ago with the formation of the IOSA Action Team, which started just about exactly 2 years ago, January 19th, 2019. A whole group of community volunteers, people from across response organizations, IOSA volunteers, county government, you name it, got together. The picture on the right there is the very first meeting here in Friday Harbor. And one of the core kind of focus of that group from the beginning was to organize ourselves in the same way that an incident would be organized. For those of you who've been following the COVID response or understand how the incident command system works, this org chart will look familiar to you. The main idea here is just to communicate that it was a tremendous group that came together in a very structured and organized way to help rebuild IOSA. Lots of experience, lots of great energy, and we kind of ran full speed ahead into the rebuild. And the foundation for a lot of that work was this tracking document. It's called an Incident Action Plan. It's the same document we're using now for the COVID response, and we're not going to go into the detail on this. I just want to highlight that there were very clearly defined objectives, very clearly defined strategies to meet those objectives, and then that action team met on a regular basis to kind of measure where we were at, to understand if we were coming up short in areas. And I think at the end of all of that, when you look backwards, it's sort of been a tremendous and really rather incredible path that we've taken to get IOSA to where it is today. And it's not that the mission is complete or there's not a lot more work to be done, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that this group and the method we went about it built a really solid foundation for IOSA as we head forward. So I'm not going to read all of these for you, but just highlight some of the most important ones. We've already talked about the expansion of the board of directors. That was really important. Even amidst COVID and the rebuild, we were able to directly train over 100 community volunteers on wildlife and hazardous materials response. Early on in the rebuild, much of that training was in person. More recently, it's been online. Lots of work on the budget. And then, you know, as Mr. Stevens highlighted, probably the most important piece of this whole thing was the expanded partnership with the county, which really culminated, and this was after a lot of hard work with council and IOSA staff and volunteers on the approval of the 2019 levy that put a significant amount of taxpayer-supported funding towards IOSA on a yearly basis. So that is now a key piece of the revenue stream going forward. It's not the only piece by any means, but it's really what enabled us to launch and get to the point where we are now. Todd Nicholson from the Port will talk more about some of the work we're doing with the Port, but the support that his organization has been providing is just remarkable. That's another just outstanding partnership that is kind of core to the way IOSA operates. And then the segue to me being quiet and passing on to other folks is the hiring of our new executive director, Tony Parkin, who's just been a remarkable addition to the team, and we're very lucky to have. And I'm going to now pass off to Tony for his piece of the presentation, talking about where he's coming from and then the budget going forward. So thank you, Council, and here you go, Tony.
Okay, thank you. So I hope you can all hear me, but so I'm Tony Parkin, the new executive director. This is my office, and this is the new beginning. I took this picture last week, and I just want to tell you a little bit, first of all, about myself. So I came from England about 37 years ago, and moved to Houston and then up to Alaska. I have a degree in oceanography and marine geophysics and traveled around the world doing that kind of work for many years, but always went back to Alaska. Work I did was physical oceanography, tides and currents, and working on boats, and so very familiar with small boat operations. And then in 1989, the Exxon Valdez happened, and I was hired as a chief scientist on the long-term impacts of that oil spill. This was taking the effects of oil in the environment and in the animals and critters. And that started off my work in oil spill response. Went off to Spain and worked on the Prestige spill, which was very similar to some of the oil moving through our area right now. It was a very heavy oil, and the impacts on the shoreline were extreme. And then I worked on Macondo for a few years, and then got hired by BP back in Alaska. But as Brendan mentioned, most of the work that IOSA has done and what I've done are small spills. I want to hit on one major thing that I've done. I worked for the Regional Citizens Advisory Council in Valdez as their oil spill prevention and response project manager. And this was working with the communities and working with local people and fishermen and training people and wildlife training and oversight. And that got me more interested in the citizen side rather than the industry side. So we moved here about 4 weeks ago. My wife has a job with the infant learning program based in Oak Harbor, but traveling to the islands when she can. And my son is here, he's 12 and is dying to go to school. So when that's safe to do, he'll be a lot happier. So the current tasks, I've got a couple of slides up ahead. We'll talk about future goals and challenges. So next slide, please, Brendan. So vessel updates. As of yesterday, I spoke to Roche Harbor Marine, and we're going to start looking at getting some work done on the larger vessel, the Goose, get the engines looked at and serviced. I want to stress, though, today we could mount a response. It might not be a massive response. We are rebuilding, but we could work today. Next slide, Brendan, please. So the office, it's the best office I've ever had, me and the fish in the aquarium. It's great. It's up and running. It's fully functional. Thanks to the folks at the port. We have high-speed internet. And I'm here anytime. Please drop by. The other significant part, and we're starting the refit today of our workshop and warehouse up at the airport, and our new truck will have a complete towing hitch put on next week. So I'm moving ahead to get us more ready. The next slide shows our trailers. These will all be moved next to our warehouse. We're going to be going through each trailer. The wildlife trailer will be restocked. We'll be able to tow each of these trailers. We are actually putting together an operational fleet in terms of registration. This will make things cheaper and more effective. And I have to thank some of the volunteers, Paige and Randall, and the database people, Patrick and Peter, that have done such a great job. So the next slide. So obviously, I have to go back. I'm awed by the amount of help and preparation that the volunteers have done. Everyone in the town has been so friendly to me and my family. So it's been an excellent start. And the support of everybody, including the county, is remarkable. Where I came from in Valdez, we were industry funded, very different feel to it because there was lots and lots of money under the Oil Spill Act, a federal act. But here it feels more organic and ingrained in the community. So I've started work. As soon as we can, we're going to start doing our training in person again. But we will be doing spring and fall HAZWOPER classes and wildlife classes. We're going to be again looking at all of our trailers. We're going to pull everything out and take a look at everything. As soon as COVID allows, we'll be back on the water, and then that is key. In Valdez, I would do the wildlife training with my subject matter experts, and that was the most helpful, was to have people on the boats and have people actually working as a team and feeling that they can make a difference. We're going to be looking at dispatching, and that brings me a little bit down to the PRC, which is the primary response contractor. It's kind of a state certification. There are obligations to be ready in a certain time period and able to perform certain tasks. That's important, and it lead eventually to reimbursement for some of the work that we will do in the future. I've already been reaching out to my ex-colleagues in industry and some that I am new to. But in terms of the North Puget Sound worst case discharge exercise, which is an oil spill exercise, I was invited to participate in some form, probably Zooming or remotely, and I think Brendan will be involved as well. And my goal is to bring as many of our volunteers and board members into those events to show the value of IOSA. When the oil industry waves the flag that we have community support and we love IOSA, that has to come with some obligations. So I'll be working for that. Quickly, the data, just one last thing on that last slide. There's a database that's being developed that has information on all of our equipment, all of our people, all of our response readiness. It's a massive tool. I would say that I'm not that familiar with it yet, but I will be. So hats off to those people. Okay, so this year we're going to be looking at our PRC application. We're going to do an activation capability in terms of what can we do, when can we do it, and who's going to do it, and make sure everybody's trained correctly to get that done. Next year, the goal is to increase staff, have an operations manager. Right now, after 3 weeks, I'm operations, finance, HR, and equipment, and it's fabulous, and outreach. And this to me, this is what I do. This is oil spills, sadly, are my life, but I love it. And then Todd will talk a little bit more about the marine operations base. And further down the road, some of our Goose in particular is a good working vessel. It could probably be a little bit more up to date, and we will start looking at fundraising for some better equipment and the maintenance position. So next slide. So I've left these from before. This was an earlier presentation, and the inability to find a qualified and capable candidate. I take that as hopefully I filled that first one. We'll be looking to fill further positions in the future. Difficulty in securing funding. We were all hearing how the oil industry is suffering, and it's people aren't driving so much, and people are switching to alternate energy. But honestly, if you want to protect the San Juan Islands and you are proud of the San Juan Islands, then you better help fund what we're going to be doing. Reestablish some of the connections with industry. As Councillor Stevens mentioned, over the last couple of years, IOSA kind of faded a little bit. We need to bring them back into the fold and bring us back into the fold, and we will do that. The next point, the IOSA vessels are not suited for all weather operations. We need to evaluate exactly what we consider our operational limitations are for the safety of our responders and the effectiveness of what we're trying to do. Working in the dark is always a problem, and in fact, in Valdez, half the time we wouldn't work in the dark. Bless you. And then we're looking at the safety of our responders in terms of physicals. And the last thing there is the use of vessels of opportunity. Even particularly in the Exxon Valdez, hundreds of vessels arrive to help. And we want to make sure under IOSA that people are trained, they're safe, they're insured, because there are liabilities around using vessels for oil spills. Next slide, please. So I apologize if I'm not that coherent around some of these slides. This is my third week. I will be more versed in our budget and financial goals, I promise you that. So right now, the work that's being done, that I have, my spreadsheets for past budgets and proposed budgets are very, very clear. They're self-explanatory. We will be accountable to all of our funding sources as to how we are spending our money. We're going to be tracking purchasing this year. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but last year was kind of a foundational year. We were kind of getting stabilized and moving forward. As you heard, I've already got work to be started on the warehouse and the vessels and looking at our wildlife equipment. But things will be accounted for and we will be audited. We are working through capital and reserve funds. You'll see some of the numbers, but we are planning back in-person training, which is more expensive. And we will be bringing IOSA back up to a readiness which will cost money. We will be looking at more new and increased funding sources, and I've started dealing with the refineries on the mainland and other bigger actual oil spill response organizations that I think need us. And the final thing is that we'll build a professional, sustainable, and effective response organization. Okay, next is a very busy slide. The highlights, I think, it's worth talking about to maintain books and records of expenditure. So we will have an accounting system. It will be auditable. It will be clear. The annual meeting, annual accounting of our expenditures and income will be done, and there'll be an independent outside audit. Again, thank you to the county. We have 2 positions on the board who are appointed by the council. And we will be, as Jay mentioned, we're looking for a bit more of a geographically diverse board. So we're looking at orcas. Again, part of our funding stream, as I'm sure you're aware, is our matching requirement, and we're working towards that. And eventually, people will be giving us money. I feel confident about that. And again, primary response contractor is the key. All right, I'll move on. Nope, it's fine. Just some numbers here. I'm sure you have this document, but income, industry contributions, we're going to be knocking on their doors. We'll probably do an in-person as soon as we can. The carry forward you see there, we'll be working through that as this year's expenses do increase. Okay, next, please. Breakdown of personnel, the office and operating expenses. And I think the big one here that I wanted to point out was equipment repairs and maintenance. We're going to be working through that. We're going to buy some new equipment, particularly up at the shop. And that is all I have to say about that. But please, I want to also mention, if you can go to the last slide, please. I think there's one more slide forward, Brendan. Okay, next, there we go. So just really quickly, I carry this all the time. This is my cell phone. I'm on call. We can respond. And I'm so happy to be here and looking forward to moving IOSA ahead again. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So good to have you here. And I'm going to pass off to Todd now for talk about the operations space.
Sure. Thank you, Brendan. Just going back just one little bit, we don't have to take the slide back, but from a budget standpoint, so we've converted our budget to be very similar to the way the county lays out its budget. And the takeaway from right now is that we are adequately funded to operate according to our plan. We're rebuilding, we're building reserves, so we can be protected from downturns in the economy and other funding mechanisms. We are on track currently, so we have achieved our at least last year, we had our 50% match from industry, and we're confident that we'll be able to meet the 50% match in the current time frame, and we're equally confident that we'll be able to pull off the 100% match on the agreement schedule with the county. So from a budget standpoint, we feel pretty good about where we are. So let's talk about the future IOSA operations base. I just want to offer a personal thank you to the county council and specifically Chair Stevens and Senator Loveland for some significant funding help with the IOSA operations base. So much so that it would be difficult to imagine this operations base coming into the real world without the support of Chair Stevens and Senator Loveland. Because we've got between PFAP funding, Washington State budget funding, and National Marine Fisheries Foundation, that accounts for upwards of $500,000 of support to pull off this operations base. Let's see. The operations space itself is going to include, for IOSA, it's about a quarter of the facility we're building. It has office spaces, a large classroom, a kind of incident command post type area, a fairly large training area. We've got a separated maintenance shop, but it's right on the water. It's adjacent to where all of the in-water assets will be held. So you can see that the operations base is going to be right here on the east edge of the Jensen shipyard property. And so go ahead and forward one more. So this is going to be the Marine Technical Center, and within this building, the upper story on the left-hand side, that entire complex is being constructed for IOSA's use. And if you'll go forward one more, here you'll see the floor plan layout of the Marine. It's the right hand floor plan. And so we've got a 60% floor plan that's a little bit different, but it flops the meeting rooms and training rooms to the water side, which allows IOSA the opportunity to defer some of their long-term cost of rent. So that's a nice feature. But this is the takeaway on this is that this is a real facility. We're at 60% design. We're going to be dropping permits within about a month, and we are looking at design and permitting in 2021, and potentially starting site work in late 2021 and be ready for occupancy in 2022. So this having the ability to have an actual home for IOSA, to do volunteer training, to do incident command center work, to lend a hand to larger incidents or county incident command type issues, whether they're oil related or not. This is a significant step forward to having an organization that can really pull off the mission that has been envisioned. And so, yes, so that's it on the Operations Center.
Thanks, Todd. I think now it's a great time to open it up to any questions or comments from council. I know everyone on the line would be more than happy to share what we can.
Cindy.
So as far as incident response is concerned, is there a plan to be able to respond from any of the big islands, or is that something that's not necessary?
Tony, do you want to take that one? You're on mute, I think.
I'm sorry. What was the
question?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, the question is, will you have is there a long-term plan to be able to respond to spills from any of the big islands rather than just from San Juan Island, or is that something that's not necessary?
Oh gosh, no, it's county-wide, and we have equipment stashed on the islands around, and we will be doing training on each of the islands, and the state has already developed strategies for island protection throughout the whole region. There are tons of them, and we will be going to as our volunteers and our responders, to exercise around those strategies. It's county-wide. Yes.
Christine?
I think it's really clear that Tony is a very essential and amazing new asset to this organization. Well done. I'm curious if there are other organizations in parts of the state, so obviously within, the Puget Sound.
So you've frozen there. So IOSA is unique, as far as I know, in terms of community volunteers. There are some of the bigger response organizations. Some are for-profit, and some have large vessels and a lot of paid employees. But as far as I know, IOSA is unique.
Christine, you broke up a little. Did that answer your question?
I don't know if you'd finished.
It definitely answered my question. I know my internet is a little sad this morning. And somebody's drilling next door, so who knows? It's a little bit of a lovely.
Yeah, one of the unique things about IOSA is that
currently, but I was also just congratulating.
Oh, okay. Todd?
One of the unique things about IOSA is that there are other organizations, a lot of for-profit organizations that respond to some of the larger potential issues and work really directly with the oil industry and the shipping industry. But the reason the port is so involved with IOSA is because IOSA fills a gap in the system. And what we see is, what we see and worry about, in addition to the large oil spills, are these small marina spills or, grounding type spills that really aren't the bread and butter of the large commercial organizations. And so having a community organization that will respond to Roche Harbor or Friday Harbor or a grounding, that's a huge deal. And that's why the port is such an enthusiastic partner on this.
So
I'll just chime in here for a sec, if I could, to Councilmember Minnie's question. I would say that not only is IOSA unique in Washington or the Pacific Northwest, but really nationally and internationally. There's maybe one small organization in Homer, Alaska that I think sort of mimics what we do, or we mimic what they do. But there's really no organization that brings together community, local government, industry, port partners, local marinas, in one organization, and sort of serves as a meeting point for all those interests. It's really remarkable what IOSA does, and I think the value to the community is, as I'm sure you're seeing, is quite great. So thanks, everybody.
Can I add just a little bit as well?
Sure.
So in answer to the earlier question, I went and bought myself a chart, so I actually sound more intelligent when people talk to me about an island. I don't pretend to know every nook and cranny. But when I went to the spill in Spain, the big organizations, the big response vessels from all over Europe went to the main estuaries and went to the main ports. I went to a fishing village that was sewing goose feathers into onion sacks to use as boom because they weren't considered important. And the islands are important to everybody, not just island-wide, but if you have a port or a small cove, we're here to protect that. And I can't stress that strong enough. A lot of the bigger equipment is hours away. And so we fill this immediate observational capability and need. And it's so important. Trust me on that. So that's all I have on that one.
I've got a question. I'm not sure which of you would know, but are we getting any either ongoing or support from Department of Ecology on operational money?
So we are. I'll let Brendan answer that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say that any support from Department of Ecology will be based on response. So as Tony talked about earlier, that process of getting the PRC application submitted and approved is what gives us the ability to be reimbursed. So there's no direct support coming in on a regular basis, but that's certainly something the organization would welcome at any point in the future. So for now, the model that we've used historically is just reimbursement based on work that IOSA is doing or has done.
Okay.
I see your wheels turning, and I think you're headed in a good direction with this.
Might have to talk to Dale about that. Dale Jensen is the head of the oil spill department of the Department of Ecology.
You know, Mr. Chair, what I neglected to mention is that ecology occasionally has funding streams allocated by the legislature for spill response at the local level. And my office, the Department of Emergency Management, was awarded a grant for $100,000 to support local spill response. And basically what we're going to do with that is pass the entirety of it through to IOSA to use on projects that they're working on. So, you know, I don't want to give the impression that ecology hasn't supported at all. They do have these occasional funding opportunities that they've been quite generous with IOSA on in the past. In addition to IOSA, ecology also gave funding to Lopez and Orcas fire departments to buy response vehicles that have tow capacity to move IOSA resources or any spill response resources around the county. And I know both of those departments are well underway with purchasing those rigs, which will be great assets for IOSA on Orcas and Lopez.
Good, thank you. That gives a little bigger picture on it. Any more comments or questions from council? Okay, I was just going to check in. Mike, do you have anything for IOSA?
Not specifically. I just think it's obviously been a good process, and I'm proud that the county put financial skin in the game to kind of be the bedrock of moving this organization forward. So appreciate all the work that everyone's done in the presentation today.
Chair Stevens?
Yeah.
This is Jay Havner here. If I could make one last comment, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, when I made the introductions earlier, there's one thing I wanted to really mention and highlight. This reboot, if you will, of IOSA and all of the work that we've done would absolutely positively have not been possible had it not been for the work of Brendan Cowan. All of the charts and slides and graphs that you saw, everything from the action team composition to the budget put together, everything that we've done Brendan has been a key person in making all this happen and coordinating and wrangling all the cats, if you will. So I just wanted to publicly thank Brendan for his help in doing this. And like I said, this would not have been possible without his efforts. And as you probably all know, having worked through the pandemic with him, we're very lucky to have Brendan working with all of us here in the island. So I just wanted to get that out there, and I appreciate that. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Check is in the mail.
Thank you for your good work.
Yeah. Thanks to all of you, and I think it was great that you put this together, particularly with the for the new council, so we can start off all on the same page. And with that, I'm going to move on. So we had short. It's a short agenda today, except for the executive session is going to take a while. So I'd like to move into council updates. Let's start with you, Cindy, if you have anything.
We're doing a little work over here on Orcas around working with a couple of schools to on removal and replacing of some old trees. So I've had the opportunity.
Your sound just cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. I don't know what it was.
Yes. So I've been able to work really closely with Colin on that issue, and I've been learning lots about the different roads issues and public works issues that are going on Orcas Island. The first community outreach update was sent out about Prune Alley yesterday. And so that project is moving forward, and we are exploring the possibility of creating a sort of a free speech zone on Orcas. So that's an ongoing conversation with the Public Works Department and parks and some very interested community members. So that's kind of what's happening on Orcas these days.
Great. Thank you. Is there anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, thank you.
Okay. Christine.
Yes, it's been about 2 weeks now, attended the CART public input meeting. That's the Conservation Agricultural Resource Team that is developing or shared a draft report on the future operation options of the Lynn Banks Cofelt Farm Preserve. There is a video of that meeting. I know I received that. It post attendance is really worth a watch, as you can sort of really get a grasp of what it is that they might be looking forward to. It's really a lot of progressive thinking, really creative ideas. It was really fantastic. I also yesterday had a short, very delightful conversation with Joe Timmons, who is the primary liaison to the governor's office, which was very informative and constructive. I also have a call tomorrow with Ann Larson, the liaison to Senator Patty Murray's office. That would be in addition to all those other lovely committee, board, and Zoom meetings with community partners that have really found their way into my daily life, and it's been fantastic.
It's great. Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mike, do you have any updates?
Just a lot of ongoing work on getting capital projects going this year. Of course, working with Mark and Kyle and others on COVID staffing. As council approved additional staffing for the COVID response, so it's all about maintaining our vaccination sites and keeping those going, hoping that we get more product. We'll do interviews in the next 2 weeks for the open management analyst position. I've gotten some really good applicants for that, so I'm looking forward to doing those interviews and selecting someone. I want to note that Alex Frick, our new public defender, and the new Office of Public Defense, Office of Public Defender, not defense, that's a different concept, has started and it's hit the ground running and is working well with the courts and others, and really kind of doing a refresh of that office. And I'll get Alex in front of the council in the next meeting or two to do the introduction and update on his work to date and the new office. And this watching a few legislative bills as they come through and figuring out how they might affect the county. So that's it for me.
Are we going to get some sort of report they were putting together on what, like if we have the vaccine, how we're going to, for that additional help? I thought they might have something this week, kind of a budget, or what additional needs do we have if we can be able to do our tracing, quarantining, as well as vaccinations.
And I can give a more expansive report, but just in a little bit later. But in general, so the council did approve money for some temporary positions. So we have some extra folks that are providing a number of functions, whether it's giving shots or other activities. We're also impinging on staff to take on some extra duties. So when people, for example, call and want to register to get vaccinated, there's an online way to do that, but we also have to have a telephone way to do that. And so we have some staff that their time will be impinged on to help with dealing with folks on the telephone who don't have access to computers or are challenged with connectivity or something. So but yeah, so I would say that we're still within what council's approved as far as extra staffing and budget. So if that somehow changes, we'll certainly let you know.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Ingrid.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I don't have really anything to report. I'm sorry, I'm using a microphone away from my calendar. Hang on just a second. The council hearing room is a crazy quilt of different communication systems going on in different parts of the room. I just wanted to let the public know that our next council meetings will be Monday, February 8th, and followed by Tuesday, February 9th. And we do have a reappointment on the Veterans Advisory Board. All of the members listed are being reappointed and have served previously.
Okay, thank you. And my updates are last week, I chaired the Ecosystem Coordinating Board meeting, which probably one of the biggest parts was the lengthy discussion of the development of the 21 through 24 action agenda and the prioritization of capital projects throughout the Puget Sound. Also, Senator Lovelet has a bill where councilmatically we could impose an excise tax for affordable housing, and it's totally optional, and it can be at least, has to be a minimum of 0.1%, but goes up from there. And it's good for 10 years or with an option for 20 years in case the county was going to bond against it for a project. And also we had talked about, and we've had a lot of emails on about groundwater, and Councilmember Wolf brought this up, I think last week or when our last meeting was. But anyway, I had called to her office, and at the same time they had sent me an email that she's willing to put in for the groundwater study again that got vetoed last year by the governor because of COVID. And I have a call into Kyle Dodd to get the application put together. Pretty much we can use the paperwork that we submitted last year. And there is like I said, there's some related bills around public health, which would regionalize our public health. But the bill is pretty light on how to handle the environmental health, such as inspections, restaurant inspections, hotel, pool inspections, water and septic administration and follow-up. And also there's a bill in to move everyone to phase 2, which is pretty much dead on arrival, but seems to be getting some traction as just a statement bill. Those are two of the biggest. There are a couple of growth management bills, as well as which includes Representative Lekanoff's bill, which would include salmon recovery and watershed scale planning when working on your comprehensive plan and critical areas ordinances. And this week I have Salmon Recovery Council on Thursday and the IOSA board retreat tomorrow. And that's all I have. Any questions or anything on that? Okay. Well, with that, then I would, if there are none, I'd move on to the reappointments for the Veterans Advisory Board.
Mr. Chair, I move that the reappointments be made for the Veterans Advisory Board as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reappoint or the members to the Veterans Advisory Board as presented. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 3-0. We will now be going into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I. And Randy, I'm not sure how much time we need. How much time do we need?
90 minutes, please.
Okay, and it will be 90 minutes. Are we expecting any action when we come out? Or is it information?
No, we're not requesting action. This is no action requested.
Okay. Then what I would say is if we're taking no action, that at the end of the executive session, we would be adjourned.
Correct.
Okay, and also, since it's right around 10 and we're gonna have to pay attention for another 90 minutes, could we start the executive session at about, I don't know, even 10:15 would be good.
That's fine.
Is that okay with everybody?
That's
Yes.
fine.
We're going to return to this meeting site, or are we going to have another site sent to us?
That's what I was wondering, Mike.
Typically, we just send out a notice and just do a meet now, and people will get a notice to join the meeting. So I'm happy to do that if that helps.
That'd be great. Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
Okay. So the break is till when, Mr. Stevens?
10:15.
All right, I'll send out a notice then,
Okay.
so you can exit out of this.
And
Okay.
Mr. Thomas, if you would please add Deputy Prosecutor Amy Vera and Deputy Prosecutor John Kane.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay.